So you can see my screen.
Yeah, it's visible.
Yes, Jackie.
Okay. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining Meetup the 38, and we will see we will deep dive into API and capability, and plus we will going to see a six demonstration. So like this meetup is completely a demonstration where like we will see like where we can use the API proxy and what are the different options available with your API proxy and what are the different capabilities provided by API proxy. Okay, so we will see like how we can create the proxy in cloud hub, how we can enable the https on the top of proxy, then how we can create a like you know proxy for your on-premise Mule runtime, then how we can allocate or how we can integrate a domain project with a proxy deployed on the on-premise, then how we can create a proxy for SOAP service, how we can create a proxy for non-MuleSoft application. So we're going to cover all these things in this particular session. So let me start with a safe harbor statement. So like both the speaker and the host are organizing this meetup in the individual capacity only, and we are not representing any company here. The presentation is strictly for the learning purpose only. So we are not responsible whether the solution will work for your business requirement or not, like a similar thing. And the promotional is representation is not for any promotional activities. Few housekeeping. A recording of this will be uploaded to event page within 24 hours. Question can be submitted and asked at any time in the chat questions answer tab. Make it more interactive. At the end, like we are not receiving many feedbacks. We just receive two or three feedbacks. We are looking for more and more feedback. This help us to improve for the future meetups. So organizer, I will not going to introduce myself. Yeah, Nilesh, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, Jackie. Thank you. Hi everyone. I'm Nitish Jain, working for Accenture. I'm all MuleSoft certified developer architect. I'm MuleSoft mentor and co-leading Surat Meetup with Jackie. Thank you.
Yeah. So I will just skip my section. Just you can read out So this is all about me. So I gave introduction for many times. So this time I will skip it. Okay. So let me go to agenda. So I will just like we already have an introduction. We will see what is API proxy, when to use API proxy. We will see demo one, demo two, demo three, demo four, demo five, and demo six. So demo one is creating a simple API proxy in the cloud app, implementing HTTPS API proxy in the cloud app, creating API proxy for the application running on on-premise, creating domain-based API proxy, creating SOAP-based API proxy, and creating API proxy for non-MuleSoft application. I think the demo 4 is very interesting. So I will going to see some use cases for demo 4. So what is API proxy? So everybody knows like proxy is something that act on the behalf of something else basically, right? So generally what happens, so in MuleSoft, there's a concept called API proxy. So generally you create some kind of a layer at the top of your implementation, right? So that is known as a proxy basically. So like API proxy is the thin API server that expose a stable interface for the existing service and the services. So let's consider like I will give few scenarios. So basically you have a MuleSoft application or MuleSoft implementation deployed in the cloud hub, and you don't want to expose that implementation directly to a client or directly to the outside world, right? You can create a proxy on the top of that application. So if anybody want to communicate with uh, with that implementation, they have to come to via the API proxy. An API proxy is a part of your API gateway basically, or you're part of your API manager generally, right? Now you have some non-MuleSoft APIs basically, and you want to enable API management capability on the top of non-MuleSoft API. So you want to enable the Anypoint API management capability on the top of non-MuleSoft APIs, right? In that case, what you can do, you can create a proxy, and that proxy will talk to the non-MuleSoft API. So you can apply any policies, or you can apply any API governance, you can apply any API security, API on the proxy, right? The third scenario, you may have a SOAP services, and like you want to secure that SOAP service basically, right? In that case, what you can do, you can create a proxy on the top of your SOAP service, and anybody want to communicate with that SOAP service, they will communicate via the proxy, right? So generally you have seen like this is the API proxy. We like generally when the example like you are working in some secure infrastructure, right? And like you want to access some internet application, right? So you generally in the browser you configure a proxy or some proxy IP address, right? So if you want to communicate to some a SaaS application or internet application, your desktop or your laptop or whatever, like your virtual machine will connect to the proxy, and that proxy will to the internet or to the SaaS based application, right? So with API proxy, you can protect your API's web service against attack by using the API proxy, which function as an intermediate between external application and the backend server. The API proxy is the agnostic to your backend location and programming language. Additionally, your backend can be a non-MuleSoft application. So what does this mean? Like you can application. For example, you have a system API. Generally, most of the time I have seen, like most of the customer create a proxy for the your system APIs. So generally you have a system API, right? And you want to protect that system API, like directly nobody should contact or nobody should connect to that particular system API, right? So they have to come via something else. So we can, in that case, we can create a proxy on the top of system API, so the client or any external entity can connect to the system proxy. Like a proxy is the additional layer of the protection on the top of your API, right? So there are few example I've showcased here. So this is simple API implementation written in the cloud, written in the MuleSoft. It may deployed on the cloud hub, or it may deploy on premise, or it may deployed on the RTF. I can definitely create a proxy. Okay, and the client will communicate with proxy, and that proxy will communicate with your API implementation, and API implementation will communicate with your backend services. The other scenario, I have a non-MuleSoft API which is running on the cloud hub, which is not running on a Mule runtime, basically, which is not running on the runtime fabric manager. They are outside the Mule runtime, right? Even in that case, if you want to enable your API management capability, you can use API proxy. So once you have created a API proxy on the top of your non-MuleSoft API implementation, you can apply any policy, you can apply any security, you can apply API analytics, you can generate any alerts. Those kind of things can be set up on the API proxy. Based service, so same thing, like it will be again soap based services outside the MuleSoft. In that case, again, you can create a proxy, and even any service, soap based service written in MuleSoft for, so you can create the API proxy. We will going to see all this with a demonstration. Any question on this API proxy?
I got a question, Jackie. So in this scenario with soap-based service,
Hmm?
so can we have API proxy return a JSON format or act or more like pretend to be a REST service? Something of that sort. Can that be achieved using the API proxy?
See, in API proxy, like I haven't got your question first, Vinit. Like can you explain me to in better? Like so I haven't got the question. So what you're mentioning,
So
like.
So, in a simplistic way, say if my SOAP-based service is returning an XML response, can I have a API proxy, which of course, as you explained, is going to cater for or safeguard our end service, return like a JSON response. Some small sort of like
No, I got your question. You mean to say like, so my proxy, like client will send a request on my proxy in the JSON format, and whenever my proxy will talk to SOAP service, it has to do the translation and
yes.
transformation. No, that's not possible. You have to create a MuleSoft application, okay? And like in the top of that MuleSoft application will call the SOAP services, and the top of that you can create a API proxy. So you cannot do the transformation and all those kind of thing on the API proxy. You don't have that capability.
Oh, okay, so it's more like a redirection sort of. Is it?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
so basically it's more of redirection, or on the top of that you can apply any security, right? I don't think like you can do any transformation or you can write any business logic, or it generally it's a basically for routing purpose. So
Mm-hmm.
like it's an additional additional layer of security on the top of your implementation. Okay,
Okay.
and like let's consider you have a non-MuleSoft API,
Mhm.
right? And I want to enable the API policies for non-MuleSoft API. How we can do that directly? Like if it's a MuleSoft API, we can also use API auto discovery. We have some concept called API auto discovery. We don't require API proxy every time for applying the policy, at least in MuleSoft APIs. But for non-MuleSoft API, you cannot use the API auto discovery, right? You have to go with a proxy concept. Like you can create a proxy on the top of that API, and you can apply API governance or API management, on the top of that.
Because with policies we can do some sort of custom policies. Will
Yeah,
that will help in some way to
yeah,
uh,
you can do that. So generally what will happen, like if you want to do some kind of translation, right, you can do with a custom policy. You are right, so you can do that. So you
okay.
have to write some custom policy, and that custom policy can do the JSON transformation into the soap based XML based transform, and then it is also possible. And like by default it doesn't provide that capability. You can do some customization, you can
Okay.
write API proxies and all, like API custom policies and all those things.
So out of the box it's not available.
Yeah, out of box it's not available.
Okay.
At least I haven't heard. I am
Okay.
100% sure it's not available. You can do custom policies, or you can create some like intermediate application between your soap service and your proxy, so that can do all this kind of thing.
All right. Thank you.
So so how proxy works basically? So generally, like your proxy endpoint generally sits, yeah, it's a part of your API gateway basically, right? So generally, like so proxy is of your API manager. So generally, like there is a one thing, like when you create a proxy, right, it deploy a additional application into
तेरा
cloud up.
सेशन अटेंड कर रहा था करो करो एक
Hello,
मैं कुछ नहीं बोल रहा था
can you please go on mute? For external APIs, are we integrating the API to API manager? Yes. So we will create a proxy basically. I will going to showcase this. I thought API proxy exists as an API in the cloud hub. This API jar could be downloaded from menu and change. Uh, Generally we don't do that, right, Hemant? We generally don't do that. So don't change anything, right? No. Okay. Any other question? No, right? Let me go move. So so generally, like so what happens? So my proxy endpoint sits in the API gateway where the client will send a request to proxy endpoint, and the proxy endpoint will connect to backend API, and backend API will respond back to the client, right? So that is how the things works basically. So generally the request will come from client to proxy endpoint, from proxy endpoint to go to backend API. Backend API responds back to proxy endpoint, then proxy endpoint responds back to the client. So that is how a proxy works basically. Let me go to the first demo. So creating a simple API proxy. So I have already deployed there's a one API I already deployed, which is accounts API. This is my implementation. Then I will create a API proxy here. Okay. And for that I have to create a API instance in the API manager. Then we can apply a policy, API security, and the API governance. So this is a simple use case we will start with, and slowly we will move towards the complex use cases. Okay. So I will create a simple API proxy. For creating the proxy, what we have to do, I think most of the people knows that, right? So this is my implementation application, which is, let me copy this URL and let me browse it. Let's see what response we get it. Then I API v1.0/account. Let me check. So we got some JSON response back. Now I want to hide this implementation. Should connect directly to this particular application or this particular implementation. For that, what we can do, we can go to API manager. So API manager have an embedded API gateway. Okay. Here I can say manage. If you have a raml, you can simply say manage API from exchange. You can just use the raml. Otherwise, there's other option. You can use HTTP API. So I can say Surat MuleSoft Proxy demo. Then you can select asset type is equal to HTTP API. I will say continue. If you don't have a raml, you can use this particular option. Then I will use endpoint with a proxy deployment target. It's a cloud up. Then I have to provide the implementation URL. So I will just give implementation URL till this. Copy. This is my implementation URL. I can simply say HTTP. It's already come, right? So I will just remove this. So I will simply say HTTP Surat MuleSoft demo. This is my implementation. Then I can go to advanced options. I need to tick one checkbox Mule 4. Make sure like this you are selecting the proper thing here. Then the protocol, then API instance. Then you can give a port number. Then you can simply say save. If everything is fine, you can simply say save. Now next thing, we have to select the version. I will say 4.4.0. I will say Surat MuleSoft Proxy. Okay. I will simply say deploy, close. Let me go to runtime manager and let me check whether it's deploying the application. So it's deploying. Yes, see, that is the whole purpose, Ivangi, right? So that's so you can secure your APIs, like you can apply any policies, you can see the analytics of your APIs, like the alerts, for request and response. I think this most of the feature, like most of the people knows this feature. The only the interesting demo, I think, this part 4. This is a very interesting demo. So I think most of the people haven't heard about this. Like we can create a domain-based API proxy also. Let me check the logs. What is happening? It is still deploying. It takes some time. Yes, you can definitely change the vCore of API proxy at any time. Not from API manager while creating the app proxy. You have to go to the runtime manager after application deployment, and you can do it.
Jackie, is it like possible to deploy the proxy in the VPC?
Yes, you can. Then depending on what rules you have set up on the dedicated load balancer, the request will transfer to the proxy. From proxy, it can go to implementation. It's possible, right? You can deploy. Only make sure like you are selecting the right port. Right now I've select 8081 port, which means the 8081 port is open on your shared load balancer. In case of when you are deploying in the app, like I can give few scenario. Let me complete this demo. I will explain that, like there are few scenarios you can take care. Let me
Hmm.
complete this. I will explain like few scenarios.
Okay.
Let me copy this URL. Now instead of that particular URL, I will use this. I can say AP. I don't have to say the API now. v1.0 slash. I will tell you why. Slash accounts. What happened? Something has done wrong. Let me check. I pick some wrong URL. Yeah, it's HTTP. Yeah, it's sometime it automatically converted into HTTPS. I think HTTP v1.0. Okay, I took wrong URL. I think. Uh, no, this is the proxy URL. I think yeah, this is the proxy URL. Change to this. I got this response. So what happens here? So like this is my URL, right? So I'll send the request on this URL. Now what will happen? Now on proxy, what I have done? I've defined an implementation URL, right? So if you go here and if you check this URL, this is my implementation URL, correct? And with this, this will take this complete URL, right? I think something, no, I took something wrong again. I think this is the URL. The request will come on this particular URL. If you see, this is my proxy URL. Will come on this proxy URL, and this is my implementation URL. So it will copy the implementation URL from this, not copy, like it will like use this particular URL and take the complete resource path, from the client URL. So that is how it is transferring the request. I have configured this much of the part in the proxy, and it will take the other resource part from the main request. So that is how it will form a complete implementation URL. Okay, so you got it right. So how things are happening now. Let me go. Go back to somebody asked some questions, so you can go to policies. I will just apply a simple basic authentication policy. I apply. Now we can apply the policy. So let me go to, I will apply some basic authentication, so I don't have to do all those things. Simple. I will simply say configure policy. Configure policy. I will give just username admin. I will give password as also admin. So it will take at least 45 seconds for policy to get applied. So you don't have to restart or like stop your application. You don't have to do that. So it takes some time. Now till that, like it's applying the policy, I will answer the question. Can proxy URL be mapped with? Yes, yes, it can be done. Like it can be easily done. Like so you have to give the like you have to define the mapping rule in such a way transfer your request to your proxy. I will tell you, I can, like so it's possible. Like just make sure you are deploying application on the right port. Like let's consider like if the request is coming to dedicated load balancer. From dedicated load balancer, you have to transfer the request on HTTP protocol. Make sure your proxy is deployed on port 8091, which is HTTP dot private port. Let's consider on dedicated load balancer, and you want to transfer the traffic to the proxy on https, right? Make sure your application is deployed on port 8092 https dot private port. And you have to ensure that whatever mapping rules, whatever naming you are giving to proxy while deploying, that name should match with your mapping rules. So that is how you can transfer the traffic. Yeah. Now I will come to your questions. So your question, can I deploy a proxy into the VPC? You can definitely deploy the proxy into your VPC, right? You can do that. Make sure like you are deploying a proxy on the correct port. If you are deploying a proxy on port 8089 in the VPC, right? Sorry, on 8081 or 80, then the dedicated load balancer cannot transfer the traffic to the application deployed on port 8081 and 8082, because that is accessible via shared load balancer, right? It become like you can access via shared load balancer. The second thing, if you are deploying a proxy on 8091 or 8092, then dedicated load balancer can transfer the traffic or can route the traffic to your proxy application.
Yeah, Jackie, now the challenge over here is I got your point. But when you go to the API manager and when you try to deploy the proxy, it does not give you any option like VPC. It has three options: Cloud Hub.
No, 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 you don't. You will never get a VPC option. Like even you
Hmm,
are deploying
hmm.
an application, right? You never get. Once you have created a VPC and you allocate an environment to that VPC, whatever you are doing deployment, like whatever deployment you are doing in that environment, it will go by default in VPC only. Now your proxy will go by default in VPC only. You don't have to do any additional configuration. You don't have to do anything.
Okay, so in that case, even this Anypoint platform GUI does not say anywhere, sorry, that this application is deployed to VPC or to the public cloud hub, right? I don't see any
No,
options.
you even let whenever you create a VPC, let consider you create a VPC for sandbox. Right now, you are trying to deploy application in sandbox. Have you ever configured like in which VPC you have to deploy the application? You just configure the environment, right?
Correct.
Same thing goes API manager also. Like if you are creating a proxy for sandbox, right? By default, the proxy will get deployed in the VPC only.
So say for example, I'm not sure if this is the right question or not, but just try see if we can I can frame it rightly. Say for example, if I have an environment called sandbox that is mapped to one VPC, then in
Mhm.
that case, I cannot deploy my application outside the VPC. All my deployments will go to VPC by default, right?
Yeah, yes, definitely. Let consider if you have created a VPC in US East 1, right, and you are trying to deploy application in US East 2, then that application will not deployed in the VPC, right? Even like you map your sandbox with a VPC, right? But by default, once you have allocated a VPC to your environment, let's consider you have created a VPC in US East 1, and you have bind that VPC with some environment. Right now, whenever you are deploy application in US East 1 in that particular environment, by default the application will get deployed in that VPC IP range only.
Okay, got it. Okay. Sure. And also, one last question. Is there any way that we can go to the runtime manager, click on the application, and can just tell that this application is deployed to which VPC?
No.
Okay, got it.
See, it's simple. Like you don't want to see that information by default. Whatever VPC like bind with your sandbox, right? Your application will go in that VPC only,
Okay, got it. Okay.
right? Yeah, here if you see, like in MuleSoft, we have a big VPC. We don't have a subnet and public subnet or firewall subnets, right? We directly have a one big network and we deploy all the application. But like if you go with AWS, we have some concept called within the VPC. You can divide that VPC into smaller networks like public, private, and the firewall subnets, those kind of thing, right? And you can deploy application accordingly. Like if you're deploying on public subnet, the application will directly accessible over the internet directly without dedicated load balance also. So right now we have a simple like only single network, that is the VPC. We deploy all the application within that particular network, and whatever environment map with that particular like VPC, like whenever we deploy the application on that, it will automatically choose one of the IP address from that VPC only.
Okay, got it. And so when we implement the proxy, I got your point now, Jackie. So say
Hmm.
for example, if I'm deploying my proxy in the VPC, so my implementation URL will be the implementation URL of my backend IP. So say for example, so it will be like
So
Daddy
it's
again,
simple,
it
like
yeah, it will be
it's
like
simple.
mule hyphen worker hyphen internal, or it will
It depend,
be
like
yeah,
no, you can also use DLB URL. Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah,
you can say DLB URL, but I will not suggest that. So you can use something called mule worker
internal,
internal.
right? Okay, got it.
Yeah, you can give a
Okay,
app
yeah,
name,
yeah, got it. Okay.
dot region
So,
dot
so, hmm.
cloud hub
So,
dot io
but what I understand
80.
is if we use this particular URL, the the capacity, the functionality of load balancing the request between the workers is been lost. Is that
Yeah,
true?
then that's what I'm saying. Like, there's some kind of restriction there. So you can use the DLB internal URL for that communication.
Internal DRV URL, right? Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Okay, okay. Thank you. Yeah, got it. Yeah, thanks.
yeah. So let me check if policies got applied. Let me do that. Yeah, now you can see the policy has been applied. Okay, so that's our first demo. We got the request. Okay, any question? Let me check. Okay, there's no question. So let me go to the second demonstration quickly. I think we have a good discussion. So how we can implement the HTTPS proxy. Here we will make use of a secret manager. So basically now client has to like my implementation on HTTP, and I got a requirement where I want my implementation. I don't have to do any changes in my implementation, but I want client to connect over the HTTPS, right? In that case, I can API proxy. So for that, we have to first configure a certificate. You should have a JKS file. Let me check if I have any JKS file. Otherwise, I will create it. I should have it. Yeah, I have a server key store JKS, right? So what you have to do, you have to go to the secret manager. I have secret manager. Yes, right. You have to create a secret group. I can say Surat secret group. You can make it. It doesn't matter. Just right. I've created that. Now I can go to key store. I can say add key store. I will say mule demo only later. So mule demo key store. And what type of key store? I have a JKS. You have to choose the file. So where is my JKS? You can go to certificates and server key store. You can create a key. You can use the key tool. So the key tool for generating the JKS, you have to provide a key store password. For me, it's a MuleSoft only. You have to select the LS. By default, it will automatically publish the LS. So while creating the JKS, you give the LS to to your JKS. Then you have to provide a private key password, which is again MuleSoft. The rest of the thing you can keep as it is. Then you have to go and add a key TLS context. Like, I will say Surat TLS. Then you have to select the target. In my case, I have a target a mule. I will use TLS 1.2. I will select the key store which I have configured just now. Then I don't have to trust or anything, just I will save it, right? So you have to do this much of the configuration. The next thing, I can go to my API manager again. I will do some changes in my existing API only, which I created just now. I can edit this with the add one option. I can select HTTPS. By default, it will say 8082. Now this is required. We require to add TLS context, which we have created just now in the secret manager. So you select the group. Secret group is not publishing yet. Let me check what happened. Or I need to refresh something. Let me check. I haven't, there is some problem. Like once we create a secret group, it's there, right? Everything is there. Okay. Let me check once again. It should be okay. Let me edit it. HTTPS. Why not coming? Let me sign out and sign in. Sometime it happen. It doesn't get refreshed. And it should not be problem. It should visible. So let me go back again to my API manager. Something has not saved there. I think I have to publish it from somewhere. Just give me a second. TLX context is also there. Everything is. Oh, I have created in design group. I have to create in sandbox. Let me create it again. Mule Surat secret. Do that. Save. Again, I configure key store in the like Mule Surat key store. Then I will use the JKS file. I will choose the file key store. Then I will give a password. Then I have to select the alias. It should populate automatically if you have given. Then save it. Then I will quickly add the TLX context. Surat TLS. And select the target Mule. So generally you can use secret manager for your API manager, and you can use for any like RTF, RTF Anypoint security. Okay, just save it. You cannot use for your runtime manager, I think. Okay. So this you have done that. Now I will quickly go back to my API manager. I will go to Surat MuleSoft demo. Then I will go back to this advanced option HTTPS. This time it should show, yeah, Surat, and you have to select the TLX context. You can say OK. Now save it. Now you have to redeploy the application. This time you have to redeploy. Suresh, like I haven't applied any policies, to. So generally, I haven't applied any policies to the main application. Generally, the reason behind creating the proxy, like you have to secure a implementation layer, and you can directly apply any policy to proxy. Generally, like in case like if you want to apply a policy directly to your application, you have to use the mechanism called API auto discovery. In that case, you don't have to go with the proxy approach. Okay. So generally, Suresh, why once you have enabled the API pro like API auto discovery, why you will go for proxy? You will not, right? Either you go for proxy option, or either you will go with the API auto discovery. Only the difference with the API auto discovery, like you don't have to require any additional application. You can directly apply the policy to the main application. Whereas in case of proxy, it required additional course, and like it required additional deployment on the top of your main application, and you can apply the policies to your proxy application. And definitely you are right, like even you are creating the proxy and you try to apply the apply the policies to your main application using API auto discovery, that that policy will like definitely, like there will be authentication between proxy and the your main application. That will always happen. Is this answer your question, Suresh Kumar? So let me go back to runtime manager, and let's check if application is deployed. It's deploying, it's taking time. So let me, till that I will explain the third concept till so we will create a proxy for application running on the on premise. So I have a account API which is running on the on premise, which have like which is referring to one domain project. So can anybody explain me what is a domain project? What is a domain?
It's a project which has got resources which is shared across the APIs which are inheriting those properties from that domain.
Yeah. So can you like can anybody give me one of the main use cases where we can use the domain?
HTTP listener config can be in the domain,
Okay,
and then
let me give, yeah. So let me give a scenario. I will tell you I have deployed one application on port 8081 on on-premise Mule runtime. Can I deploy a second application on port 8081?
no.
No, right? In that case, we come up with a concept called domain. So we will define our HTTP listener connection in the domain project, and utilize that particular connection across the multiple applications. So we can ensure that each and every application listens on the same port 8081. Okay. So let me show that example here. So I created a Mule domain project. In Mule domain project, I have just HTTP listener with port 8082 and protocol HTTP, and this is my other main application, a Surat test, which is referring to a Mule domain project. How you can refer that? You can go to properties, I think. Within property, you can go to Mule project. By default, it always listen to a default domain, but you can change it to Mule domain project. Okay. So for deploying this particular main project, you should have to deploy a Mule domain project. Let me export this first. Okay. Okay, this is right. Let me export this project also. We will go one by one. So I have exported my domain project as well as main project. Now this domain project can be referred by many applications. So for me, like the application which is referring to domain project, if you need to deploy that application, make sure the domain project is already deployed. You don't have to deploy domain project again and again. You have to just deploy once, and then you can deploy as many application you want, and you can keep all the shared resources in the domain. Okay, I'm just waiting for my application to get deployed. Till that, what I will do, I have already set up a Mule runtime, right? So I have already have a Mule enterprise runtime, and this Mule runtime is already registered in my Anypoint platform. For creating the proxy for your on-premise application, your Mule runtime must be registered in your Anypoint platform. In my case, it's already registered. So you can use AMC setup commands to do that. It's very simple. You can simply go to add server, give a server name, just copy this command and run this for, like you can go to bin folder and you can easily run it. In my case, it's already there. I will simply start the Mule runtime. Once I will done the Mule runtime start, it will come in the running state. Okay, you can see it's quickly in the running state. Here you can see everything is proper. Now let me deploy a domain project. Can anybody tell me where I can deploy the domain project? Where it goes? It's in domain folder. So you have to deploy in domain folder. Keep eye here. No, it should get start. Yeah, it got, as soon as you copy the jar file, it will automatically unzip it and project started. Let me deploy a main application also, which is referring to the domain project. So you can go to apps folder. I will not do from here. I will do it from here.
So Jackie, as far as the domain project goes, we
Let
need to
let me
still.
come, Nikunj, let me finish this.
Yeah.
I will come
Mhm,
back to you. Okay. Yeah. Let me
mhm.
finish this. But like, let me deploy the application. So Mule Surat. Okay. I will select the target as a, because this is my server and this is my on-premise. Choose the file. So I'll go to desktop and I will deploy this file. Deploy. You can deploy it from here. Keep in this command prompt. If everything is good, it will deploy. Yeah, the application is deployed. Go to apps folder. You will see the application is deployed. Yeah, Nikunj, you can come. You can ask me your question.
Yeah, so as far as the domain project goes, we have to still go with the backend approach, right? We cannot go with the Anypoint manager, sorry, runtime manager, right?
Why? I see. I haven't got your question. Like what you are saying. Like can you repeat?
When we, so if we want to deploy the domain project on your on-prem Mule runtime, we cannot deploy it through the
No,
runtime manager, right?
no, not possible because runtime manager deploy everything in the apps folder. Right, so you
Got
cannot
it.
use so
Mhm.
and you
Okay.
generally don't, domain project generally don't deploy every time you're deploying an application. It's a one time job, right? Like in future if you are adding some extra resource, then you have to redeploy the domain project. So you can use any CI/CD pipeline or anything which can copy that domain project into the folder jar file into that domains folder. Even if you are using the Mule Maven you cannot deploy a domain project into domain folder. Like you need to define your own process.
Okay.
Either it can be done manually or you have to use some command using CI/CD pipeline to deploy a domain project, because Mule Maven plugin also doesn't support for deploying to domain project. Okay,
Yep.
so the first thing, let me check. We will the second demo. Yeah, so is started on HTTPS. Let me change this. Copy this URL. Just let me change this to the HTTPS. Let's see if it works. Why bad gateway? Let me check logs. I done some mistake. Am I using the proper URL? Yeah.
I think the proxy URL cannot work, right? It's implementation URL, right?
No, no, I have enabled on the proxy. Okay, so it should be proxy only. We will see. So
Uh,
it's
Chicken, one thing that you are applying proxy on domain project or on the main project?
yeah,
On the main,
proxy is always applied on main project only, right? I
on
haven't
domain
applied.
project within.
No, I haven't done anything with the domain project yet, right? I'm just testing my first case, right? Case like let me come back to this. Let me check. Let me check. I sometime I does this mistake. Uh, I haven't saved it or like something has done. Yeah, it's 8082. Yeah, it's proper. Let me check. This is HTTP Surat Mule Proxy API, which is perfect, and we have redeployed it also. Generally, it should not have an error. Like I can say latest version also doesn't matter. 8082 is the right port, and where I'm doing the mistake, we could not find a cloud of application listening on this API. On this API, let me do one thing. I will delete and redeploy it, and let's see. Sometime it happens. So let me go back to application. We are seeing the second demo. Okay, so let me go back to my API manager. Endpoint, this is HTTP API. This is correct. 4.4 latest and Mule 4. Let me check. HTTPS is fine. Let me take this as a latest. Save everything and redeploy it. Okay, so we will see the second demo again. Now what we will see the second demo again. So what I have done, like You got my point, right? So we have deploy MuleSoft Surat on-prem application via Anypoint platform. Okay, you can see that. We can go to runtime manager, and let me browse that application. HTTP local host I have deployed on port 8082 slash API v API v1.0 slash accounts. So you can see I got the response from my local application also, which is right. Now I want to create a proxy on the top of my local application. So what I can do, so we are seeing this particular third demo. Okay, this is the demo where we will create a proxy for on-premise. So I will create account API proxy. So in that case, I can go to my API manager again. You can say manage API, create new API. I will give the accounts. I will give better name. So I accounts proxy on-prem. Then I can select the type. So I want HTTP API. I will continue. Okay, this time endpoint with proxy. I will use the hybrid approach because I want to deploy it on the on-premise. I will copy this implementation URL till API part. I will do that, and I will go back to my Anypoint platform. I'll give this URL here 8082, right? I will simply go to API option. I can use test, and I will use HTTP. Everything fine. I will simply say save. Okay. Now I have to select the target. So I have to deploy on this particular server. So I will select this server, select target, and just say deploy. Close. You go to runtime manager. You will see the application is getting deployed. You will see in app folder, it is deploying the proxy. The proxy is deployed, I think. Right now, my proxy is deployed on 81. Right. So 81 version 1.0 slash accounts. So you got the proper response. So what happened here? So I send the request here. The URL will translate to this particular URL, which is 8082, and it will also add API here. So this is how the translation happened. And you can see the proxy is deployed in your app folder. Yeah. Any question on this particular demo? And now, if you want to apply the policy, you can do that like same way. Let me do that also. So
Yeah,
let me go to
There's one
Jackie.
question from Kalyani.
yeah.
There's one question.
Yeah, I will come on that So let me go to accounts proxy on prem, and I can go
Jackie,
to
one
policy.
more one more question over here. When you deployed the proxy, you did not check that reference domain project
I will
checkbox.
come on. Let's wait. Let's skip.
Okay,
Let's wait for some time.
okay.
Okay. So 1.2.2. You see, I'm just giving admin, so I can enable the policies for premise application also. So you can do using proxy, or you can also apply the API auto discovery. So that these are the two concepts available. You can make use of that. So let's wait for few seconds. Something is, yeah, it's working now. Let me put basic. I will come on that. Okay, so don't worry. Now it is asking for username and the password. I applied the policy. You can see that, right? We got the response. Any question till now? So I will go back to my second demo earlier after applying the HTTPS. Now what I have done, we have redeployed the application. I go back. Let me go back to my API manager. Okay, and what was this? The HTTPS, right, on this particular proxy, and we have seen it's not working. Now I think we have deleted and we have redeployed it. So this is my URL HTTPS Surat MuleSoft Proxy. I provided a username and the password. Let me send the request, and I got a success response. So HTTPS is also working. So in case if you are changing the protocol, you have to redeploy the application, right? So you can see our second demo also working fine. Any question? Let me check. Somebody show me one more time a domain project. If you config only HTTP listener, how it will run without any event processor? See, for domain project, you cannot configure a single event processor. Okay, the domain is mostly for creating a shared resources or adding the shared dependency. So here you cannot have an option where you can drag and drop your processor. Like here you can define only connections, you can define only resources. I have only defined one HTTP listener here, right? Then I have referring this project to my main application. My main application contain all processors and everything, but on if you see on HTTP listener, it is using the connections from the domain project. So this is the connect. This is the name coming from the domain project. Is this answered your question, Kalyani? No. You don't have an option to deploy a domain project time manager. So basically, you have to deploy in the domains folder. So let me close everything now. Now what I will do one. So let's see. Now I want to create one more proxy. Uh, so let for on premise. So I will create new API test proxy. Select the target type HTTP API. Continue. Okay. I will use endpoint with proxy. I will use Mule 4 and here I can say HTTP and I will say 8081. I want to create a similar proxy. Then I have to go to advanced option. I will always use this as a latest. Then I will use HTTP port 8081. Let me save this and I will try to deploy this. I will use 4.40. I will just say test proxy API. No, no. Why it's coming cloud up? I've done some mistake, I think. Yeah, it should be hybrid. Okay. Now I will select the target, Surat, select, then I will deploy it. What will happen now? Keep eye here. It failed because we have already deployed one proxy on 8081, right? So it will not allow us to deploy a second proxy on port 8081. Then domain project come into picture. So then domain project come into the picture, like how we can enable or how we can use the domain project for your API proxy. Right? So let me delete this now. We don't require this. Try to do something with existing API. Let me go to runtime manager. You got the context, right? What is happening here? So I want to deploy a multiple proxy on the same port, but we have already deployed one of the proxy on 8081. We try to deploy a second proxy on 8081. It is not working. Reason? Because 8081 port is already bind. Then the things come into picture. That is the domain project. For domain project, first thing what you have to do, you have to download a one template. So MuleSoft provide one template that you need to download. So this is the URL. You have to go to that URL. Let me ping into the chat window. Download it. You can go there and you can select the version. You can select the version and you can see. I will take a latest version. I will download it. I have downloaded this project. Then I will go to Anypoint Studio. So what we are doing, we are going with the fourth demonstration where we will create a domain based proxy. We will have one proxy for one domain for all the proxy, which is known as a gateway domain, and we will have a domain for other applications. So we will have a two domain. One we have already deployed, and that domain is for application or implementation. We have a second domain like that is known as a one API proxy. Okay, so this is the demo we're going to see. I have downloaded. Let me import that file. I will import. I will say package mule application jar file. uh, I will go to downloads. I will use gateway, like I will use open. You have to do few changes. Remove this application template to make it change this to 1.0.0. Just do the changes, just say finish, then perform. Okay, then you have to go to a pom.xml. Just this version, change it to 1.0.0. Gateway, everything is fine. See, this name is very important because proxy are referring to this particular names. So make sure these are proper. Then also just take the latest version of HTTP listener, which is 1.6.0. So always take a latest version. So yeah, so these are the few changes we have to do. And if you see under Mule domain, your HTTP listener name is API Proxy Listener HTTP. If you want to change it to HTTP, this is the HTTPS. HTTP only for now. So this is very important thing you have to take care. When you are exporting this file, there is some name you have to give to that particular file, which is a proxy hyphen shared domain. Change this name, okay? So export this and just change this name to, if you are using Mule 4.2.2 and above, right? You have to change this name. Remove this, copy this. It is a domain. Okay, let me copy this folder, proxy jar domain. I will go to domain folders again. Let me deploy it. Let me keep an eye on it. Should deploy. Yes, so because I already have a one which is listening on 8081. First, let me delete that proxy. We will create it this again using shared project. Okay, so you can delete the anchor file. It will automatically delete it. So let me restart it, because one application cannot listen on a multiple port, or sorry, multiple application cannot listen on the same port. But then you have to use the domain project. I think this time domain should start. Everything is start a proxy shared domain. Now now let me go to runtime manager, and let me delete all this application which I don't require. I don't have much vcourse and all those things, so I have to delete it. Okay, so let me go to API manager again. Okay, and I have to let me delete also, we don't require. Okay, let me create a new instance, create new API, and Mule proxy on prem. I will use HTTP API, continue. Okay, I will use endpoint with proxy hybrid model, and I will give HTTP API 8081 API. My API is deployed on 8082, I think. Yeah. Okay. In advanced option, I will use this as a latest. Okay, always use latest HTTP, and here you have to check it. Reference a user domain, basically. So now the port see, as soon as I click on this, it remove the port from here. Reference user domain. Now it will from the gateway domain which we have deployed just now into the domains folder, right? So it will refer from there. Okay, so let me uh, save this configuration, right? Select the target, just deploy. Hopefully this time it will run. You can see that, right? Let me browse it. HTTP loop 8081 slash it's v1.0 slash accounts. What happened? What happened? Let me check. Yeah, application is started. Have I deployed the main application? Let me do one thing. Just a minute. Local host. I got it. Let me check. Just give me a second. This should work. If I have deploy, yeah, I've deleted the application which I have deployed. Sorry, like let me redeploy it. That's fine, no issue. Any question on I'm deploying the application again, so it will take few minutes.
Can you share the URL, the one from where you took the template?
Mule demo app. I will do that. Let me just redeploy application. By mistake, I've deleted this. That's why it's not able to transfer the traffic. It got deployed also. Okay. Localhost. This is the my implementation URL. Let me try with a proxy URL now, which is on 8081. Like now API v1 enter. Yeah, we got the response. Right now, I can let me create one more proxy, whether it works or not. Like we need to check that. Okay. The last time it is not working on the same port, we will create a second proxy on the same port. Manage create proxy uh, demo to HTTP API. Continue. Okay. Endpoint with proxy Mule 4 hybrid and HTTP local. I think it's 8082 API. Yeah. Yeah. Path same is fine. I will take this latest HTTP 8081 and here you can reference a user domain. I think everything is fine. Select target, Surat, select and deploy. Let's see what happens now. Yeah, you can see the second proxy is also got deployed. Okay. Now I want to show you one more thing. Why I am saying like these names are very important when you are deploying the proxy. I want to show that also. So what I will do, I will just download the file. Like I will download the proxy. Let me export that import that proxy, browse and download and proxy gateway domain proxy. Yeah, this is the finish. Okay, so if you see it here in pom.xml, you can see it is referring to one dependency. See com.mulesoft.anypoint gateway proxy domain. That's why I've changed the version to 1.0.0 and mule domain. If you see in gateway also, this is my mule domain, like and if you see in gateway, I give the similar name, yeah, here. That's why I have to ensure that version number gateway proxy this name matches because the proxy is dependent on that particular dependency. You can see that. Okay, I hope this clears like for demonstration. Any question on this? Okay, let me quickly go to a fifth demo uh, where we will see the soap service. Let me first clear everything. So I hope nobody have any doubt, right? Before I move to next demo, let's runtime manager. Let me close everything. Okay. You can delete it from here. and clean up everything. Yeah, that's fine. So now the other demo, I have one soap service. So basically this soap service is known as a calculator service. So first let me open presentation. So here I have a soap based service which is located somewhere, outside the MuleSoft, and I want to make sure like this, I want to enable the API manager capability on the top of that soap web service, right? So how we can do that? So there's a concept called soap based proxy. We can make use of that. So let me do that. Uh, so I have this particular URL, and I will send the request on that, and I got some successful response, and I got the addition result. Let me copy this URL. Let me go back to my API manager. Here I will create again a new API. I will select a soap based proxy example. And you can select the asset type, which is soap API. And you can go to advanced, or like you have to you have to copy this WSDL basically. So let me generate a WSDL. Let me copy seal as a calculator dot WSDL, all files, desktop, save it. Okay, I'll do that, and I will choose the file. That I will say continue. It is processing. If everything is fine, if it's validated the WSDL, so I can deploy. I will use endpoint with proxy. I will use a cloud hub only. You have to give an implementation URL. I will give as a full implementation URL. I can remove WSDL. So this is my implementation URL. So under advanced option, then you have to give a service name, service port, service namespace. So you can let me search for service name. What are the things that required? Let me check. Just a minute. I'm missing something. So service port. Let me search for port. This is a port type. And this is service name, which is calculator. Let me copy this service name, service port, and service namespace. Service port is calculator. Okay, and you have advanced options also. Then you have to give a service namespace where I've given service. I think this is the namespace as per me. Let me check this. Okay, so save it, and like select the Mule runtime and soap example Surat. I think service namespace is something I given right or wrong. Let's wait while application is deploying. I'm waiting for app deployed. Let me go to runtime manager. This deploying. So I'll copy this, and instead of this URL, I can give this particular URL. That's it. Soap example Surat. Then you can apply whatever policies and everything you want to apply, you can do that. It takes few minutes, then it will get deployed. Any question? Yeah, it is started. Let me check whether it's working or not. Yeah, we got a successful response. We got a result also. This time I'm sending the request on the uh, cloud of URL instead of directly to the uh, soap service URL. So you can do that, like, so that is on whatever policies and everything you want to apply, you can definitely do that on the on your soap service also. Okay. So this is the fifth demo and last demo. I will show you how we can enable a non-MuleSoft API. So basically, like I have a one non-MuleSoft API. So like that sits outside the MuleSoft, and I want to like enable the API governance and API policies on the top of that. How we can do that? So let me have one URL. I have one URL. Where it is this? Yeah, this is the URL. So I have this URL which is not protected, and like you got a response directly, right? So what we can do, we can create the API proxy for that, and we can apply the policies. So let me go to API manager. So you can say create new API. I will say world time API. You can select HTTP API. Continue. Okay, endpoint with proxy. Then I will give a proxy URL. So I can give the proxy URL till this part. So this is my proxy URL, advanced option. I can take a latest one, and the rest of the thing you can keep as it is. Then I can select the latest version, world proxy, and deploy. Meanwhile, it is deploying. I will apply the policy, so I don't have to waste the time. Like I can just apply normal basic authentication for now. So you can apply any policy. Yeah, apply. It will take few minutes for application to deploy. Once it will deploy, we will test it. Hers, like this question is not valid itself. Like once you applied a proxy, like policy on proxy, why are you going to apply, a policy on basically? Why you will apply the policies at two places? There will be no conflict, right? In that case, like you need to pass the authentication at two level. If you're applying at like proxy and then you are trying to apply it at the application level, this doesn't make sense, right, Hers? Let me go to runtime manager. Okay, let me copy this and I can say Asia, Kolkata. I will try to access with proxy once it will get deployed. See, there will definitely like simple like you are applying policies on proxy and same policies on like your API, So and you will try to use the API auto discovery and proxy concept both together. It doesn't make sense, right? Either of like one you can use. Yeah, application deployed. Let me test it. Now I got a successful response. I'm just checking here. Yeah, it asked me for username and password. I mean, I got a successful response. Yeah. So these are the 6 demo. I try to complete each and everything what proxy provided. Like what are the different ways you can configure the proxy. Yeah. So thanks. Anybody can nominate yourself as a meetup speaker. You can suggest a topic as well. And what is the next? So guys, we will not run a trivia quiz today. Sorry for that. So like we already have a lot of things pending yet. So that's why we decided not to run the trivia quiz this time. Okay. Any question?